Okay, so for dinner tonight, it's all about spaghetti. And making sure we've got everything ready. We've got a pot on the stove, which we can use to do the meat sauce on the left. And over there on the right, you can see already we've got some water starting to boil. It's going to be to cook the spaghetti in. Could be any kind of pasta, but we're going to use spaghetti tonight. We got a tin and a glass here on the stove. One is the tin of chopped tomatoes. Could be any kind of chopped tomatoes, but I like to have it with a little bit of Italian spices in it. So a little basil and maybe a little oregano. The tomato sauce used for the sauce and the spaghetti sauce here could also be any kind of sauce. I don't like the sweet one. This is more the Italian style. So it's also got some Italian spices in it, but that's up to your taste. Gonna need some salt and pepper, some oil. I'm using olive oil, but it could be any kind of oil. Gonna use some extra oregano for the sauce to give it some more flavor. Like I say, we're using spaghetti tonight, and we've got about 400 grams of freshly ground beef here to make the sauce. And that'll give us a really good portion. And I like to add some garlic because it adds some flavor to the sauce. I don't put it in the beginning because the garlic tends to, the flavor tends to get much milder. I like to put it in at the end and then press it. It gives a much more garlicky flavor. So let's get started here. I'll put this over on a little shelf and I'll go to work. I think. How's that? That looks about right. I hope I'm getting everything. So, we're going to start by adding some salt to this water here, because like I said, pasta without salt can get kind of boring, and the salt also changes the temperature profile of the boiling water, so it cooks better. Now, to do the meat, I'm going to bring this pot here up to a medium heat and add some olive oil. Could be any oil. And once that oil is really hot, then we can put the meat in there and start to fry it up so it gets completely nice and brown. And just try and organize how much spaghetti we think we want. This is 1 kilo of spaghetti, 1,000 grams, so half of that would be 5, and I think that's too much, so we'll probably even go for half of that. There's only me here. I think that should be a good amount for today. Just put that there so it's ready to put in the water. Oh, maybe just a little more. Some spaghetti that fell down between the cracks here. I don't want that. There. Okay. Now, oil is getting there. So I just take the meat out of the pot. Obviously, I've washed my hands just now. And we'll spread this meat into the pot here. Distribute it on the bottom as much as we can. You don't want to put too big lumps because it gets a little difficult to separate if it starts cooking like that. Starting to sound right. Okay, now I'm just going to wash my hands again. Okay, so let's start stirring this meat around here so that it's all nice and crumbled. Tune up the heat a little bit, I think. Make it a little brown a little faster. This would be a good time to add some salt. Obviously to taste, not too much. And of course some pepper, black pepper. Some people like to add things like chili. I'm not into that because I don't think that's really an Italian thing. You can also, in the start, if you want, you can chop up some onion and put the onion in first. You can even chop up some carrots and put that in too. You can chop up some mushrooms, whatever you like. I like to keep it kind of simple. With respect to the water that we're going to cook the pasta in, some people think put some oil in so it doesn't stick. You don't really want to do that because what happens is, yeah, the spaghetti doesn't stick together, but the sauce doesn't stick to the spaghetti either once you're finished. So, not a good idea to put oil in the water. Meat's coming along all right. We just want to make it, we don't want it to be gray. We want it to get browned a little bit. Let it cook on its own for a second. And this is probably about the time when maybe a glass of wine is nice when you're cooking. It always helps the cooking process, so cheers. So let that cook a little bit more. Water's starting to boil up all right. Okay, the meat's getting to be nicely browned now. So I think this is a good time to open up this can of chopped tomatoes. And we'll just add that right in. Mix those chopped tomatoes around with the meat. Let it cook back up. Yeah. Let it cook back up. In the meantime, I'll just take the lid off of the pasta sauce. So it'll be ready to go. See, the water is coming up all right now. If you want to speed up the process of the boiling water, put a lid on. It will go faster. Now we only need about 10 minutes to cook the pasta. Always look on the package to see what the recommended cooking time is. Normally it's going to be somewhere around 9 or 10 minutes. You don't want it overcooked and you don't want it undercooked. Okay, so we've got our sauce now. The meat with the tomatoes is starting to boil again. This is time to put in the rest of the sauce here. Yeah. If the sauce is really, really thick, this one was not thick. If the sauce is really, really thick, you might want to just put a little bit of water in the glass. Just swish it around and make sure you get all that good stuff out there, like that. Now we'll start cooking it up again. Make sure that everything is all evenly distributed here. All the meat, the tomatoes, the sauce, and everything, yeah? And bring it up to a little boil. You can probably turn down the heat now a little bit. As soon as it starts boiling, we can add these garlic cloves. Now the meat sauce, you can basically make that at any time. The Italians will say that the longer it cooks, the better it gets. So you could easily make it well in advance and have it prepared and then go ahead and cook up the pasta. I kind of tend to do everything at once. Now we've got this sauce is boiling nicely. I've turned down the heat a bit. Just to, don't want it to splatter all over everything. We'll start adding this garlic. So what I do here with the press, and if you don't have a press, you can squash these little things up and cook, cut them into pieces and then put them in now. The press has obvious advantages because you put them in here, and when you squish, you're getting all the juice and all that good stuff, but you're not getting the fiber. So that was 2 cloves. And we'll put in 2 more, because that's the way I like it. There we go. Now, we want to stir this garlic well into the sauce and make sure that it's evenly distributed inside there. The smell of that garlic coming out of that tomato sauce, that's really good. And like I say, you could put, you know, some people will put red peppers, green peppers, mushrooms, some onion, anything you want in here, actually. Whatever you like. And sometimes it's just fun to experiment a little bit. Let it cook up again. Also with the spices, the Italian spices like oregano or basil, if you're using that, the best thing is to put them in at the end, because if you add them in the beginning, a lot of the flavor will disappear. Actually, when, you know, unless you're using fresh, which is kind of hard to come by, but if we're using this stuff that you buy in the supermarkets, which come in a glass, the best thing is to put it in here in the end of the process. I like to be generous with that because it gives oregano gives a really good flavor to Italian food. It's got a good aroma. So what I'm going to do now is turn this heat just down so it just keeps at a simmer, right? Just a simmer. And we can put that pasta into the pot of water. Go. Now it's a good idea to kind of distribute that pasta in the water so it doesn't bunch up. That also helps keep it from sticking, yeah? And like I say, the instructions on the pasta package will tell you how long to cook. I don't like pasta to be mushy. I think it's got to have a little bit of structure, a little bit of what we call bite to it. So I'd rather have my pasta undercooked than overcooked. And now that the pasta is distributed in the pot here with the water, I'll leave it to itself for a couple minutes. Then again, take that fork and move it around so that you're sure that the pasta isn't clumping together in the bottom, yeah? Meat sauce is simmering nicely here. When the pasta's done, now I have the benefit of what they call a pasta cooking pot. You can see here it's designed actually to put the lid on and pour the water out, and there you go. But you can use anything that you have to drain the water from the pasta when it's finished. So taking time here, I'm going to cook it for about 10 minutes. And the next thing I'm going to do is, see, I like to put some Parmesan cheese on top. So we'll open this up. Good thing about this dish is you can make it today and you can have it today, you can have it tomorrow. I was reading that you can actually even use it 3 days. So we are on track. Got our Parmesan cheese here to sprinkle on top. Put that on the table. It's got a good smell to it. Pasta's coming along all right. It's not sticking to the bottom. Very important that when you cook pasta, you got lots of water. Because when the pasta is cooking in the water, it gives off starch. Starch causes stickiness, so if there's not enough water, yeah, it can tend to get kind of bunchy. You don't want that. So, I'm getting hungry. It's got a nice consistency to it. It's not too thick, it's not too thin. You spoon it up and you get this feeling of, oh, it's really meaty, and those chunks of chopped tomato, they also give it some nice body, yeah? Probably time for another sip of red wine, I think. As the pasta sauce continues to simmer, it reduces a little bit. It gets a little bit thicker because there's water that's evaporating. That's a good thing. You don't want it to be too runny. Now, the pasta's been cooking for about 6 or 7 minutes now. And all pasta is different. Normally it's made from one kind of wheat. It's called durum wheat. Depends a little bit on the pasta and how thick it is also. This spaghetti is pretty thin. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to try and check and see what the consistency is like. Because like I say, the last thing you want is to overcook it. Now, it's a good thing I checked because this pasta is just about ready. You can see this is a thin spaghetti. Sometimes it's a little bit coarser, a little bit heavier than this. Just a couple more minutes. Okay, now I'm going to consider that the pasta sauce is finished. So I'll turn the heat off on that one. And also say that the spaghetti itself is done. I don't want to overcook it. So we'll take it off and I'll use this nice lid that I've got to pour the water off. Okay, now what we're left with here is a nice amount of steaming spaghetti, a savory pasta sauce, and we're ready to eat. So now if I was together with my beloved Asawa, I would put this up in something and we would serve it on the table, but seeing as how I'm just by myself, I'm going to bring my plate over here and I will grab some of this spaghetti. Yeah. There we go. I think that's going to be about right for right now. Put some sauce on top. Now I know this can be done in a way where you just add the sauce to the spaghetti, mix it all together, and there you go. I think that's probably more the Filipino way. This is maybe more the Italian way, but either way, it's up to what you like. So that was it. I'm going to sprinkle some Parmesan on, and I'm now going to enjoy my spaghetti. Thank you for watching. Bye.